Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 109. We are officially in April. I can't believe it. Last week, we dropped a little of a April Fool's joke, so hopefully we didn't make anyone upset or sad. I think people were emotionally.
What about the ones who listen after April 1st?
I know, that's true. That's true.
You can always tell the people who listened past that joke and who didn't.
We are back at PCA's national headquarters. Around the table, we have Manny, Damon, and Robert at the controls. I'll start off by maybe a quick moment of silence for Manny's front left tire.
Yes, I was in full denial. I hit it about 6 miles before the exit for PCA. And this thing was, and it's the kind of thing where the car in front of you like jerks out of the way, and it's raining really hard.
Yeah.
So I say to myself, I'm not going to make any sudden adjustments. So I went straight through, and I got swallowed up on my left-hand side. And as soon as I hit, I could almost hear metal.
Oh.
And I've got 16-inch wheels, so I don't have these 20-inch
Was it a pothole?
tires. It was a pothole of a zip code.
Yeah.
It was monsters.
And I think it's pothole season because I took.
I think.
I went.
Welcome to Maryland.
I went to pick up Jason from BWI at 12:30 in the morning. I was in the Odyssey and just cruising along. It was also raining pretty heavily, and then all of a sudden, I think I hit a pothole or I hit an amount of water, and it didn't violently shake the car, but it was like a significant like bump, right? And then all of a sudden, my RPMs on the Odyssey go to the moon. I'm like, oh no, like did I break a half shaft or something? And then I didn't hear any metal, and I just started drifting into the shoulder saying, oh man, it's 12:30 in the morning. I can't believe I'm about to call AAA or whatever, or figure out what's going on. But as I'm drifting into the shoulder, I looked on my dash and I noticed, it's in neutral. Somehow it bumped so hard that it went from drive to neutral. I'm like, what are the odds? Let me just put it back in drive. And what are the odds that it just works? Put it back in drive.
Wow.
And
lucky.
Moseyed along. However, so I kept the engine on the whole time. I pick up Jason in the roundabout at the airport, go home, turn the car off, thinking all is good. The next morning, my daughter borrowed the van to take her dog to the vet and go to work. And this is where I'm proud of my daughter, because she is now truly a car girl, but she won't admit it. She's like, Dad, the van is running fine. No lights are on the dash, but it sounds like a Fast and Furious car every time I accelerate. I'm like, huh. So now I'm thinking
Exhaust leak.
I'm thinking it's some kind of exhaust leak, which is not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So Saturday, I do go take a look underneath of it. And have you ever had this happen before? So below the precat on the downpipe, there's like a hard pipe connected
in a Flexos.
No. It's
Okay.
a hard pipe connected to the bottom of the header, and I think this is like the air for it to blow through the cats or whatever. So, anyways, it's got a mount there with 2 studs. However, I had no 2 bolts. So
Wow.
the studs were there, the mounting thing was there, the gasket was there, but I guess at some point the 2 nuts must have rusted.
Rusted off?
Maybe.
No, I still think it's sheared off.
And then the flanges were just separated enough where I could see the gasket kind of flopping, and that's where it was the exhaust was leaking. So you grab your universal 13 millimeter nut, and I sprayed some was it not WD-40 but the other stuff, the liquid penetrator
Seafoam or whatever
penetrating oil. So anyways,
Deep creep.
that's it. Yeah, that's it. And then so I tightened them up, and once I got to almost the very end where it would seal, like the threads there weren't present.
Oh yeah, so that's what happened. So you put a couple washers on, and then
That's the trick.
I did that because I had wrong torque numbers on when I installed my coilovers.
Oh.
So I had actually right now I have 2 washers to bring the nut off of the. And I should just replace it because it's suspension.
Yeah.
But yeah. That kind
So
of
that's a trick for those of you that haven't experienced that before. So where the original nuts were, the threads must have rusted off as well. So I grabbed some washers and some lock washers, which this is why you keep every nut. I mean, this is a hoarder's dream.
I don't think they rusted away though.
How would they disappear?
I've seen nuts that are 60 years old that are still in the
I'm pretty
rusted,
sure
but
whatever you hit pothole wise,
Pop them off?
probably just pop them off, and it sheared the threads on the nuts and the stud just on that area,
Just on
and
that
then
area.
slid the rest of the way off.
Yeah. So, yep.
So the stud is stronger than the nut. So.
That is the cheapest fix ever.
I'm hoping that I just blew a tire out. I didn't do any suspension or
Yeah.
because I drove 60 on the way back.
So
we'll find
where
out.
on 95?
Right before 100.
Right before one.
On the
Which-
left or right lane?
So usually I would have been in the left lane, booking on down, but it was raining, so I was. And it was a lot of standing water, so I was doing 65 maybe.
Yeah.
And it's lane 2, I guess. You can count 1, 2
I must have
left or
just
right.
missed it because I was in the.
Were
Like
there
I
other
said, if the
cars
car
pulled
in
over?
front of me had not been there, I would have seen the pothole. But he moved over right as he was about to hit it, and I had no room, so I had to run into him. And,
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
and it started pulling like a NASCAR all the way to the left.
Well, this is a great lead into my show and tell because you'll probably be the first person to use it.
Thought he was going to grab an autocross
Is it a
trophy or
crucifix?
something.
A rosary?
So we'll talk about how I autocross this Saturday. But I got a new tool. For those of you that are watching online, you'll see this is pretty cool. This is from DeWalt. It is a air compressor and blower, and I was getting tired of like plugging into my cigarette outlet, and then also this you can put the setting of whatever pressure you want, and then just hit run, and it automatically stops. So you'll be the first person to use that today.
I don't think it's going to help me, though.
You think you have a bigger hold on
I'm
that?
pretty sure, yeah.
Really? Well, we'll find out.
I think mine's a sidewall problem.
Yeah, so this uses the same battery pack as all of my other DeWalt tools. Comes in handy.
Very
So
cool.
I look forward to using that because for my you can put it down right there for me. So at the Autocross, I run say 32, 33 psi when I go there, but when I run 29 in the front, 30 in the rear, hot. So and then the more heat you put in, the more runs you kind of drop it. So after the day is done, I always like to pump them back up before I drive home, and that thing will come in handy.
Yeah, very much.
So remember, my other show and tell is, that thing was like $120. Not
not
too
bad.
expensive. And again, it uses the same batteries as my other tools. So remember, we were searching for like shallow sockets.
Oh, you found some stubbies.
These are called stubby sockets.
Wow.
And it comes in a nice little, and these are impact versions, which are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's 3/8 stubby, not too expensive, $45. Comes in a nice holder.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get myself some of these.
Cool,
I've needed
huh?
them before.
And then one more. This one I have to give a shout out to the Burtonsville crew. They came. I don't think I have any Klein tools, but I know their quality. And the guys brought some Klein screwdrivers. And check this out. Now I bought the wrong one. This is the 27-in-1 tamper-proof screwdriver, which is nice, and I still might keep it. But the one I really wanted was the 15-in-1, which is ratcheting. But check this out. It's quality, and then you pull this. Look at that.
Very nice. Yeah.
Feel the quality of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want ratcheting, though.
Yeah. So I got the ratcheting one. The ratcheting one actually is cheaper, but I guess it has less tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, Klein. And I guess when you can press it here and then still spin the
So we'll check in
Very
a year
nice.
to see how many of those little bits are still there.
exactly how many. At least I think what's cool is you don't lose them, right? Because you'll notice when they're not in place. So
Yeah, that's if you put them back.
Yeah.
I always put them back. So anyways, if for those of you that are listening or watching on YouTube, I love tools. So if you've got a cool tool that you recently purchased and want to share with us, let us know. Yeah, you probably end up making me spend a little bit more money, but yeah.
Or
Klein
if you
tools.
bought one from one of these infomercials.
That was
the-
not
the
good.
30-in-1. Let us know if it was
What is
legit
it?
or not.
You know those socket sets that have like pins in them, and it's like gator grip or something like that. I've always wondered
Oh, yeah, I know what
whether
you're
or
talking
not
about.
a gator grip
It'll fit
actually
any socket because
right.
it's just
They
for
show like a
emergencies.
loop or whatever, and you just kind of press on there. I think for like not exact stuff, I think it probably does work. But I've never bought one.
Yeah.
Can't bring myself to buy such a universal tool.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, so Manny, how about you this past weekend?
Let's see. I did not go to the Autocross. I sent Greg Hartke a nice note, and he invited me to go to the one, the Test and Tune, for instructors. But I had to power wash the deck, so I actually went to Cars and Coffee instead in the morning. And then I came back. Our friend Will, who listens to the podcast, who has done it for over 12, 13 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Even he was shocked at 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30. 25, best as I can describe them, Fast and Furious cars show up.
Oh boy.
And this event ends at 10 o'clock. And at that time, I think there was only maybe 5 or 6 cars, 4 of which I think were some Porsche guys, and we were discussing whether or not we were hungry enough to go to the barbecue place to get an early lunch. And so we see these cars all pull up, revving their engines and everything, and they're backing into the parking spots like a new car show starting. So Will stopped to talk to one of them, explaining that it was over at 10 o'clock, and that the stores are open. And part of the issue of us not going over 10 o'clock is that the stores want to have the parking spaces available for their customers. So fortunately, the group, which I'm not sure what they're called, but I'll say you did the right thing. They stayed for about 5 minutes, and then they left peacefully. No,
That's good.
No
Nice.
issue. They were cool about it. And I told one of them, I said, the problem is, we don't want to lose this lot because there's no reason why the mall has to give it to us. They're they're probably car people. They like what we do, and we behave ourselves, but you don't want to piss off the vendors or the merchants.
Yeah, that's a constant battle for car meets, right? Because it takes one bad egg to possibly ruin it for everyone else. And it's much easier for business owners, property owners to say no than it is to say yes. And you get one yahoo that decides to rev the cars to the moon or do something crazy. In fact, this morning on the way in, I was listening to the radio, and I think it was in Northern Virginia. There was a car meet, and they were doing some crazy stuff, and the police show up. It sounds like it's almost like a takeover where they take over an intersection, because they surrounded the cop, jumped on the car,
Oh, my
beat
God.
on the car. There's like audio where the officer's like radioing in saying they're jumping on my car and da 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 da. And I think one of the cars hit an officer. Like, it's just,
Where is this?
this was in Northern Virginia. And also, I'll add to that, coming home on Sunday, and I'm not stereotyping, but there was this red eye Hellcat Charger.
Yeah.
It was like a wide body one. Even my wife said this, like, he was driving like it was GTA. Like, he was cutting, dicing, and literally got no further than we did, because guess what? There's red lights. And he was just going back. I'm like, oh, please let him get pulled over. But it's people like that just gives the car scene a bad name, and I wish they would just grow up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, or not a lot of it, but a certain part of it, Will and I were talking about, what he does is he does a great job of keeping the Instagram photographers off the sidewalk,
Yeah.
because they'll line up, and the people who like that will start, spinning
Yeah.
their wheels,
Sure.
revving their engine, and pretty much being a nuisance to the neighbors,
Yeah.
and just so they can get captured on.
Yeah. But the reality
camera.
is it's a public space, right? And people are out there standing.
Well, for Hunt Valley, actually, that area is just theirs. And they have the support of the police, so they don't leave. They just call the police up, and the police tell them to move along.
Yeah. Police presence is the best. Like, I love it at car shows when there's a police presence, because it keeps the hooliganism, down to.
And a lot of them understands. He said that if you talk to them,
Yeah.
they realize this is a hobby, and what they're doing is encouraging people to. I mean,
Misbehave.
I showed you on Instagram. There's a account that just features cars wrecking at car meets, leaving car meets. It's unfortunately, hopefully stuff like behavior like that doesn't take away your favorite cars and coffee spot.
Yeah, and if I see someone like that, we've all done stuff like that. Like, let's be honest, we've all done stuff like that.
But there was no social media.
There was
when
no
I was
social
doing
media.
it,
So-
and I was in my 20s.
Yeah. So what I tell them is there's a time and place if you really want to drive and learn how to drive. And I think that's a great segue into what you were just talking about. Is the Chesapeake region had their test and tune for instructors as well as test and tune for just autocross participants. And we were at Bowie Baysock Stadium, and they laid out a very nice course. A lot of fun. Weather was fantastic. So I'm assuming at Cars and Coffee on Saturday there's a ton of cars because the weather was nice.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard one of our friends got 17 runs in.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
So
I missed it.
So
stupid
this
car.
I stopped after 10. Like my body was just like, this is too much.
Yeah,
I
I
was
wish I
like,
could
I'm
have been
good.
there.
I'm good. Yeah, and it was early in the morning, so it was still kind of cold. So I'm like, I'm just not going to get much faster. I went from, I think my first run was like a 56 or something, and I got down to like a 50.6. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'm like cutting 6 seconds off. I don't know if there's that much more in me to go, but it was a great time. Great to see all the instructors, and thank you to all the volunteers in the Chesapeake region. The run was good. It was good. Nice. Car did well. Looking
Nice.
forward to it. But I think now that'll be the last run for a while because we'll take it apart. Mm-hmm. We're gonna be taking apart the
Yeah.
996.
Fortunately, you have people who know what they're doing putting it back together. So we'll be back on the road.
That's the whole idea, right? So we're gonna drop the engine on the 996. Did we talk about this already?
I'm not sure, but
think
yeah,
so.
we're going to do an IMS bearing
No, we didn't.
remove and replace in late April, early May, and hopefully have that video ready May, June.
And it'll probably be like a multiple part video because we're going to show you how we drop the engine, show you the IMS installation. There's some other things that are while you're in there, which is the coolant filler tube, which at this age typically gets kind of hardened and can crack, so you replace that. I'll probably do my air to oil separator, and then the other thing that's probably the most invasive part is the chain ramps. Chain ramps on these engines are like a hard plastic, and again, after time, they become hard and brittle, and it's a good opportunity to change those. And I'm sure there'll be a host of other things that I'll be. I think clutch and
flywheel, yeah, all this stuff. I mean, you already had water pump done recently and all, but there's a lot of while you're in there stuff.
Yeah.
I did a lot of the same stuff on my car when I did pulled the grease seal on the IMS bearing. So yeah, it's a big surgery, but it's not very tough work. It's just tedious.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited, but I'm honestly I am quite nervous because I've never dropped the motor on my 996. I've dropped the motor on my 87.
yeah,
But I don't know if it's the same. We'll find out.
yeah, we'll find out for sure.
All right, you want to talk autocrossing or tips for folks, or
Yeah, I think we all have autocrossed or are currently autocrossing, and it's a sport that people who just recently joined the club, or maybe you've been in the club for a while, you don't have any idea what it is, or what I always hear is how much will it wear down my car if I autocross, and I think people get track events and autocross confused sometimes. And so, to me, it's the second, or it should be, it's the first event I did as a PCA member. It was my second day as a PCA member. When I joined on a Saturday at a Concours, they told me, "Oh, you got to come out tomorrow to the autocross," and I was like, "Sure," not knowing what it was. And all I knew is you had to put a helmet on, and you felt like you were going really fast, but you aren't. And I got lost every single run.
For those who are watching on YouTube, the photos that are playing right now, these are from the French Lick parade. Was that when it was raining? Or kind of damp in the morning and raining, and then it got better?
It probably would have been the second, I think, French Lick parade.
Yeah, it was second.
Yeah,
It was like 2 years ago? Yeah, anyways, Stephen Landau, somebody who is a vendor at some of our events, took these photos, and it's just that event, so, but for background.
yeah. So I'll start by saying, on paper, autocross doesn't, I would say, sound reasonable to spend a maybe half day driving. So in some cases, full days, because some people will say, well, you commit to a half day or full day, but you're only getting like the run that I posted or showed earlier. That was a 50-second run. So on average, most autocrosses, you get maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get 5 runs. You might get 7 or 8, depending on the region, depending on how many people go. So they're saying you invest that whole day or half day and you get 5 minutes to 8 minutes worth of driving. On paper, if that, right? But it's so much more than that. And I think Manny and Damon can echo, it is much more than just that particular driving time.
It's like downhill skiing. That's only like probably a minute at maybe less. You watch Olympic downhill skiing, but that is one intense minute. And most of all, you cannot make any mistakes.
Right.
Unlike the track where if you screw up a couple corners, you can make up. But on autocross, you screw up one gate, one corner, odds are that run will not be competitive.
So let's back up a little bit. I don't think we actually, at least here in the podcast, actually said what autocross is.
Yeah, good point.
So
good point.
What it is usually takes place in a parking lot. It's not a track event or a track day. You have a start line and a finish line, which are separate. And then you have, I don't know, anywhere from 60 to 100 plus cars, depending on the size of the venue or the region that's hosting the autocross. And there are pylons, usually orange cones placed throughout the whole course, and you have to go drive through that course as quickly as possible without hitting a cone, knocking one over, going off course. And if you do stay on course for the whole run, then you get a time, and if you hit a cone, plus 2 seconds. If you go off course, DNF, did not finish.
Yep.
So right now, if you're watching YouTube, this was actually the last autocross. About 3 hours after this autocross, my AC compressor blew on the way home.
And the only thing you do need is a helmet.
Yep, a helmet. You don't need a roll cage or anything.
Nope. It's and they usually always have a painter's tape or shoe polish to put numbers on your car. So it is very minimal investment, and the entry fees, I think the most I ever saw was maybe $75.
Yeah, it's probably the high end usually.
That's on the high end.
And that's the high end. That's usually at a racetrack that they rented part of the track or some lot in the racetrack, and I've seen them as low as $25. So
and you can do this, in your 2-door Porsche, or you can do it in your 4-door
and
Porsche.
some regions are actually allow non-Porsches. So if you don't want to take your Porsche out, but you have something else, sometimes they don't allow pickup trucks and minivans or vans. But if you have a daily driver like a Toyota Camry, you can bring that out to autocross.
Sure.
Some of our funnest autocross have been in rental cars.
Yep.
I've autocrossed my daily driver, and it was fun. I haven't in a while, but very low barrier to entry.
Yeah, the thing that I like, and it depends on the region too, is that when you're on a track, which I love track driving, but there is a certain line, and it's fairly obvious what that line is, and if you don't know the line, you basically just stay on the track, right? And then you can make it through the track. Whereas in autocross, some regions don't chalk the course, so you really do have to learn how to read the cones. And even if they do chalk the course, there's still some variance in which you enter a corner or you do a loop-de-loop or something like that. And so it teaches you to look ahead and prepare, place your car, throttle, position of car, what gear you're in. Like, there's a lot going on. And as Manny said, it's one of the most intense minutes that you'll do driving your car. Now, keep in mind, the speeds are typically at most 45, 50. There might be some regions out there that do third gear autocrosses that reaches some higher speeds, but for the most part, it's like a 55.
It's because the purpose of autocross isn't
it's the top
track speed. It's car control.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting at. Is you're not going at a high rate of speed, but you're pushing your car in its cornering limits so that you can better understand how it'll react, and you can learn car control, and that directly translates into when you're driving out on the street. And I think I've told this story many a times where I was going along on an exit ramp it was a fast exit ramp at like 60, 65 miles an hour or so, and a deer came out, and it just, like, I just went around it kind of just with the muscle memory that I learned from autocross, and it was not an issue. But if you didn't have that muscle memory and hit the brakes, or didn't react, like it literally, I think it, I don't want to say saved our lives because that sounds so dramatic, but we didn't hit the deer. And I remember like my kids and my wife going, oh my gosh, and then, but yeah, and it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, so I would encourage people, if your region doesn't have an autocross program, either check with SCCA or NASA or maybe neighboring regions. I've found almost universally autocross clubs love the influx of new people because that keeps the sport alive. They keeps more volunteers available. So a lot of them are going to have facilities where they assist newbies. So you're not going to be thrown to the wolves. The autocross community is the friendliest community I've ever encountered. If you say, is there anyone that can walk the course with me, you'll have people lined up who will be more than willing to walk the course with you and give you some pointers and help you. When people ask me, I always try to ascertain their level of experience. If they're brand new, then you keep the tips to a minimum because it's a lot of information to take in. You basically don't want them to get lost. A lot of regions will also offer instructors to ride with you. So they'll ride with you as long as you want. Even we do that parade now, is if you want someone to ride with you to help you not get lost, no big deal. They'll ride with you and they'll stay with you as long as you feel comfortable. Although I have found that most people after 2 tries want to try themselves out. Either that, they want to lose 200 pounds out of the right seat and go faster. But yes, as a newbie, don't feel intimidated because you're going to get there and you're going to see people with floor jacks and extra set of wheels, and the guys have been doing this for a long time. But they're also the guys who, if you want to borrow that torque wrench or you want to borrow an air pump, they are more than willing to help you out because everyone wants to see everyone else run.
And another tip for you is, if you're signed up as a participant, take the opportunity to ride with an instructor. Because you may have, a Turbo S or GT3, and again, on paper, you should be smoking, 90% of the field there. But you hop into an instructor's car that might be a base model, whatever, and you go, wow, how are they so quick? And it just opens your eyes to how capable Porsches are, just bone stock.
Yeah.
And you can, if you know how to drive them, you can do really well.
Yeah.
Including the 4-doors, Macans, Cayennes.
I want to drive a Taycan at an autocross.
There'll probably be somebody there who has one, who autocrosses it.
Yeah,
so
I've seen Wendy Shoffett drive at Parade in her Taycan, and man, it looks quick. Like when you watch videos of driving on course or driving on track, like it never looks that quick. I mean, it feels quick when you're in the car. But when you watch electric cars run, they are quick, all that torque.
Yeah. So it's the question I get a lot is how much wear and tear is that going to put on my car? So it's much different than track. Track will put wear and tear on your car. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everything from the paintwork to engine, clutch. It's a much more rigorous workout on the track than it is on autocross. Autocross, like Vu said, the run is a minute at most, and you feel like you're going really fast, but the people watching are thinking he's not going fast at all. This doesn't look hard at all to do.
Yeah.
Tire wear, maybe, but everything else, it's just a minute you're out there.
I would say at a beginner, a novice level, the wear and tear is really no different than you going to the grocery store. I mean, it really isn't. Now, let's say you take a stock car, stock tires, and you are an advanced autocrosser. Yeah, you can then start chunking tires and stuff like that, especially if you go hard into the corners and stuff like that. But as a novice, very minimal wear and tear.
Yeah, I think for me and my Cayman, I had a set of the stickier 200 treadwear tires, and they lasted one season, probably 1,500 miles of just driving to and from autocrosses to Parade, Pennsylvania, and back, and then the rest was just like 20 autocrosses, and they were done. So it will be harder on your tires, for example, than daily driving, but you'd probably go through that same set of tires on my car in a weekend at a track.
Yeah.
Rather than a full season, I should say.
Right.
I wonder, so setting up an autocross car, it's definitely different in the way that you can either optimize for lightweight or, instead of adding that third radiator like I did, you leave it off, because in autocross, you're not stressing the car for a long period of time.
Right.
The way I think of it is, to Manny's point about track versus autocross driving, I think you're probably driving harder in your 5 runs at autocross for each of those runs than you would at a track day. But the difference is that's just 5 total minutes of really hard driving versus 3 or 4 run groups of 20-minute sessions, hard braking and all that. So I've never worried too much about things breaking at an autocross, really, unless you go off track, which can happen.
It would have broken on the street.
Right.
If it breaks at the autocross,
Right.
that's something that would have broken eventually on the street.
It's probably better it happens at an autocross.
Yeah, because on the track you're getting 120, 140 miles an hour, breaking down to 60 lap after lap. On the autocross, you're not anywhere near those speeds. You're not, like Boo said, you're not braking any harder than on the highway or a regular parking lot. It's the stress on you as a human. Many a time I have run 1 minute and been sweating. Where the track I've driven for 20 minutes on the track and didn't break a sweat. So maybe that's because the wind was blowing a lot more, cooling me down. I think it's because when I ride with students, I'll tell them you got to breathe.
Yeah.
You're not going to realize it, but you're going to hold your breath when you start running, because you're so intense and so focused on what you're doing that you forget to breathe. So on the track we tell them that as well, but autocross I think is even more so, and I think that's what makes it fun. Is that it's an incredibly intense minute. The car doesn't feel it as much as you do. You're because you want to nail that course perfectly. And I always say that, in Concours, I never heard anyone say, "Judge me one more time, rejudge me." But in autocross, everyone says, "I just need one more run, and I think I can beat my time."
But with that said, though, typically, let's say out of 5 runs, which run is your best run?
It's always like the third.
Exactly.
It's like third or fourth
Because there's a balance, right? So at the beginning, your tires are cold. You get learning the course. By the 3rd or 4th run, you got everything kind of down. And then your last run or your second to last run, you kind of say, I'm going to put it all out there, and then you run it too aggressively and you get kind of sloppy.
Yeah, sometimes.
I mean, once in a while
you beat me on a 2 or 3 last run.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're trying to find that limit.
Yeah.
So you got a good run. You're saying, okay, I think I can go faster in this corner,
right?
Or I think I can take this corner without braking or just lifting.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about having more than 3 runs, is that you really get to experiment to see what works. The worst thing for me is when I get my fastest run on my first run, and then every run after that slower, and then I'm trying to figure out what in the world did I do in that first run that I can't replicate and improve on. So, I hate when the first runs are fastest.
And the funny thing is, we're talking about, in a lot of cases, half a second or a second, where we're trying to dip into the 40s when we're like 50, 50.9 or something like that. I mean, you think about it, on course, a minute course. You go a few feet away from a cone, or you hold the brake a little bit longer, or you get too early on the throttle and you push the front end out. Like, all those fractions of a seconds matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of even apps on your phone that will give you data of your run, when you're accelerating, when you're not.
Yeah.
I have something like that. I haven't set up the overlays, but Racebox makes a GPS and they have an app, and I know that other companies make the same sort of GPS thing, and there are other apps that you can hook up to your GPS, so you can edit your videos and put rev counter if you're hooked up to OBD, Gs, and all that. That's actually a very big thing nowadays.
I meant to ask you guys, what do you think of my video? Because I utilize my Christmas present, which are my Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. So they're my sunglasses that have a built-in camera.
Clear.
Yeah,
It's pretty clear, and
it's pretty stable, right?
Yeah.
And what I liked about it is you could tell where my head was looking. And like when you're with a student, you always talk about looking ahead. And it feels like the camera is right next to my eye.
So it's a lot of shuffle steering there.
I am. Yeah.
Shuffle steering is good at autocross.
Yeah.
I like to keep them
You like to keep it set,
the F1.
but I need more turn in. So yeah. Someone commented on my post working on my hands, but
yeah, happy hands.
happy hands. But it was good. It was pretty cool. I was pretty impressed. Now the only thing is the Ray-Ban Meta glasses only record 1 minute.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they only record a
Wonder
minute.
why that is.
It'd be nice if it could record 1.5, because then it would probably capture
Sure.
all autocrosses I go to. But
So what do you got to say? Like record out loud and
so when I was pulled up to the line and he's like, "Go when you're ready." After he says that, I say, "Hey Meta," and they go, "Did," and they say, "Take video," and then I can see in my rearview mirror that my glasses are on, and I can drive with both hands, and it's actually a lot easier than like setting up a camera.
It almost has
yeah,
that. I know you don't watch F1, but F1 has this great. Not a visor cam; it's like a helmet cam. It's located
there.
right here.
That's where my lens is.
Yeah, and it's a great view, exactly what Charles Leclerc's looking at when he's driving.
Yeah.
It's almost like a.
I could see my RPMs and everything, and so
That's the kind of thing. Once you start doing this, it can quickly go down a rabbit hole of stuff you can buy. Or they say slippery slope, because like Damon said, you start to, because it's never the car, and it's never. I mean, it's never you. It's always something else that can be improved on the car. But it does teach you fundamental car control and weight management
for sure.
and at a very a controlled environment. I always tell people, you want to spin in your car on the autocross, because you're going to feel what the car is telling you right before you spun. You're going to feel the rear end get almost light, like it's in the air, and that's when you have no rear traction and you're about to lose grip and spin the car. And that's a lot easier than like on a day today in Maryland where it's pouring down rain, and you spin out on the highway and possibly hit other cars or a guardrail. So if nothing else, it teaches you to become a better driver.
Yeah, it can teach you how to throttle steer. At the finishing gate on this course, the way they set up, you're coming into the last two gates full on throttle. And when you've practiced enough, like I waited almost to the second to the last gate before I hit the brakes really hard, and what it did was it put all the weight onto the front tires, and because I know how my car can rotate, like I actually stayed on the binders and steered, because it would change direction because all the weight was on the front tires, and then the back end would start to rotate a little bit, and as soon as I was pointed into the stop box, I got right on the gas, and it's that kind of stuff that you learn on autocross that you really can't do on the street, and you can appreciate, how to maneuver your car. Here's the thing. How about we share maybe some pointers or tips or some things that newbie autocrossers do that shouldn't or should do?
Let's see.
While you're thinking, I'll go with the first one. Leave all the nannies on. Don't turn off traction control. Don't turn off all that stuff. Leave everything on. Because we did have one car this weekend where it was obvious they turned off the traction control. It was a Ford GT, like the 2000 era's Ford GT,
Oh,
like
really?
the V10 car. And the first couple runs, he was leaving off the line, and of course you could see it had traction and everything. And this one time, he took off, and it rotated, and it was going towards a curb, and I was just like, oh no. And thankfully, everything was okay. But if you're not sure about how your car is going to react with that stuff off, leave it on. You're not winning a significant amount of money and or a trophy.
Or look for a skid pad school.
Yeah.
Or a school that has a skid pad. That's the perfect place to play around with PSM, taking on and off, and see how great the PSM is and how not so great of a driver you are. Because PSM can trick a lot of people into thinking that you're a phenomenal driver because it's doing such a great job. I think the one I tell people all the time is, in autocross, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Absolutely.
And I tell them that because the answer is not more throttle all the time. A lot of times when I tell people, the more you turn your steering wheel and the more you hit the throttle and the car is not turning, that's understeer. That means you have to lift off the gas to shift all the way to the front, so the front now gets grip. But the natural reaction is to give it more gas and keep on giving more steering input. And so a lot of times I'll take them outside of the car in the parking lot, and I'll say, here's where your wheels are pointed. We were going straight. When that front end finally grips, you're going to feel a sudden jerk to the left or to the right, wherever you have the wheels pointed, and you're going to be going in a whole direction you didn't want to go. So just remember in your head that sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Yep. For me, I would probably say, and I'm still working on this, which is why this is my tip, but looking ahead. And it's easy to say, oh, I do look ahead. You know, maybe you had a good weekend, a good run, and you think, oh, I mastered looking ahead. You know, what else is there for me to do? And you go on your next autocross, and you just can't seem to beat the guy you beat last week. And usually, if you can't think of why is that happening, why am I messing up here? You know, why can't I get on the throttle sooner here? It's not usually because you're doing something wrong technically with your technique. It's usually because you're not expecting, you don't know what's coming up ahead because you got caught up in the moment. So how I extract time is when I find myself doing that, I try and look up and ahead, and that usually improves my corner entry, corner exit, and everything coming up. So it's sort of a good dominoes effect.
Yeah, and I would seek out someone that has a similar car to yours that's faster than you, and avoid the urge to modify your car before you can really learn to drive. Because people are like, oh, I'm going to go to 200 tread wear tires, or I'm going to change shocks and springs, or I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Eventually, yeah, you'll probably get there once you get pretty good, but you don't need to do any of that at the beginning because, like I said, there's some people, and also it throws you into a tougher class. Like you, instead of running in the stock class, you run in the prepared or modified class, and now you're running against people that have.
I would say outside of PCA, the stock classes are actually more competitive.
Yeah.
That's where the majority of drivers are, and they just stick tires on it, and that's it. And I
was going to say, some of the best drivers are running stock because the driver has a lot to do.
Yeah.
Even as overall as autocross, the sport, what I like is that, like you said earlier, you can have a GT3 RS, but if you don't know how to autocross or performance drive, the guy in a Boxster, a first-gen Boxster, is probably going to beat you.
Yeah.
And as we all know, what's the enemy of every Porsche? It's a Miata.
Right.
Some kid will show up in a Miata,
Right.
slightly tuned, and will smoke everyone because it's a lightweight car, very nimble, and this person knows how to drive, and may have sticky tires. All that combination just trounces 500 horsepower.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would agree with Vu as well about getting a ride with somebody who really knows how to drive. When I first started autocrossing back in 2006, I obviously was new. I hadn't ridden with almost anybody at an autocross, probably nobody at some point. And then I went to a SCCA autocross and got a ride in somebody in their MR2, which was, 130 horsepower. And I was kind of amazed, like, wow, if he can do this with 130 horsepower, I'm doing something wrong in my 208 horsepower S2.
Yep.
But then also before that, actually, one of the first rides I got, and I forget his last name, but his first name's Hassan. He had a 986 Boxster, and before that, it was either Hassan or Martin Reinhardt. And before I got that ride, I thought I was a fast driver, but in a Porsche, seeing what basically a stock Boxster can do, and slip angles, and I wouldn't call it drifting, but opening the wheel up and squaring off the turn a bit, it just made me, it put a goal in front of me that basically told me, you're not fast, that's fast.
Yeah,
you need to get there if you want to be considered a good
There's
driver.
always someone faster, and there's always more to learn.
But you won't know unless you get that ride.
Exactly.
So always
Absolutely.
get a ride with a really good driver early
Absolutely. All right, so now that we've convinced you to go autocrossing, again, if you're a novice, most regions even have loaner helmets. The only thing you really need to do is just empty your car out. And because the reason being is we don't want things rolling around inside and getting caught under your accelerator. And this is the one thing that people don't understand is I don't like hearing random things when I drive. So, for example, if you had whatever is sitting in your back seat and you hit that brake and it goes flying and, even if it's on the passenger, I roll around on the floor, like that's a distraction.
Yeah.
And when you're driving on an autocross, any distraction causes you fractions of a second because you're not focused in on driving. And that's why I tell people, take everything out.
Yeah.
But other than that, you show up, you go through tech inspection, again, you'll get assigned an
Check
instructor.
fluids before you get there.
Check your fluids. And as Manny said, if you drove there and nothing's leaking and so on and so forth, like your car is ready to go as is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, I hope you guys get out there. For us here in the Maryland area, definitely the autocross season is starting. Hopefully Damon will get his car back up and running soon so that we can battle it out.
If I'm real, I don't think it's going to be on the road within 2 weeks.
My car has a bad habit of picking up a front tire, which I was talking to Danny Ko, and I think I'm going to be making some. I think I have too soft of springs, but I'm not going to put new springs on my car. But I do have adjustable.
Too soft, not too.
Yeah, I have.
I would think you soften the sway bar. It's going to not lift up.
So the chassis stiff, but the springs are soft. That could happen.
Exactly. So because I bought Pro kits, I don't have coilovers or anything like that, and I have Bilstein B6.
Get a set of Ohlins for the 996.
I just that's just a lot to do. So I'm just gonna try to fine tune. Like driving wise, I feel like I have all the grip. Like I don't feel like it's understeering or oversteering. Like I feel like I can control the car the way it's balanced. But everybody's like, your car picks up a front tire like almost every corner.
Damn, they noticed.
But that's not terrible.
That's what I'm trying to understand. It's like, is that a bad thing or not?
Many of so it used to be the opposite with Hondas. Hondas, the rear
Pick up the
would
rear
lift
tires.
up because it was a front drive car.
Yeah.
The front, I think my race car used to do it because I had 650 pound springs in the front.
Yeah.
And so, if you're loading up on the right, you're not using that left hand side at all.
Right.
Excuse me, you're loading up on the left, then the right's going to lift up.
You're not.
So
needing the
basically,
traction on that side.
you're not using that tire anyhow.
Right.
So it's not going to provide any grip
Yeah.
whatsoever. And even on the track, that's the same way too. You got one side loaded up. I remember at Mosport Turn 2, I was asking one of the fast drivers, "How should I take this?" He said, "Put your left wheels in the grass." I'm like, "In the grass?"
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Your whole right side's loaded up. Your left wheel's not even going to be
doing
touching
anything.
the grass." He goes, "But it gives you more track now to make that apex even tighter." And sure enough, I watched the session, and people were doing that. And I said, "Yeah, so I got to get out of my head because the tire's not even really touching the grass."
Yeah.
So I wouldn't.
It makes for great photos. I have some great photos
Yeah.
of my car with the
So
tire.
Danny knows what he's talking about. I know Danny. He's very knowledgeable. So I wouldn't just discount that.
Right.
But maybe take it TBC or somebody
Well,
who does
what Danny
suspension.
said was because right now I'm not sure where my rear bar is, but my front bar is on full soft. And he said basically, if you like how balance is now, just make
Everything stiffer.
up or down, right?
the same amount.
The same amount, and see how it is. So the only thing I don't know is I think my bar on the back is already at, I don't know if it's full soft or full stiff, but I don't know that I can go one way or the
probably
other.
be
So
stiff.
I think it's on full stiff in the back and full soft in the front. So I don't know that I can equally make it more stiff. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Well,
I used to, when I wasn't lazy, I would disconnect my front sway bar on my 964 because I wanted
Just
to
to get more
reduce.
bite.
It was just understeer. It was
Yeah.
making it so tight.
Yeah.
That's why when I see the strut bars, I always chuckle because you want to soften the front end of the 964, not make it tighter.
Yeah.
So here's do this maybe. So in my car, a lot of people told me, "Why did you go full stiff in the rear and soft in the front? All you needed to do was buy a front bar and stiffen up the front, and it'll get rid of the understeer." Which to me was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I did it my own way, and I love how it works. Maybe this is a chance to just stiffen the bar in the front of your car because it's a very low hanging fruit.
I've done that. So I've stiffened
okay.
I stiffened my bar one notch, and then it started pushing.
Okay, yeah.
It started pushing.
Now,
So it's
realistically, how many autocrossers are you going to do this year?
I know, but of course, when you go, you get into it. Like, and he's like, "How many degrees camber do you have?" He's like, "Oh, you need like 4.5." I'm like, "What?" I think I have like 1.5.
You probably have less than 2.
Yeah, and then he goes, "You're running 235s up front. You can stuff 255s up front
Yeah,
easily."
that's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not. So like, I'm thinking of you, and I'm thinking, "Oh, do I want to get
Or
wired?"
keep the bar, stiffen the front bar a little bit, and then put 255s on the front. Gets rid of your understeer problem, and keeps the front tires on the
But
ground.
then you're
But then-
expected to do really well, where now you have a laundry list of excuses of why you're not beating Damon.
Yeah, and folks, this is where it's fun in autocross. Is like you go out there, you try, and then you start thinking about what are the little tweaks that you can do to get a little bit faster. And you're talking fractions of a second, and maybe one click up on both of my bars will make a difference, or maybe it will make me drive worse. Who knows? But that's the fun. That's the hunt. And so hopefully you try it out and you enjoy it. Robert, let's throw up the newsletters and encourage people to check out eBrake News, Mart Fresh News, and Performance News. Just head over to pca.org and you can sign up there. We definitely appreciate it when you give us a like on YouTube. We read all your comments and, of course, subscribe. I think we're getting dangerously close to 90,000 subscribers. So.
Yeah, it's creeping along.
Slowly like a snail.
It's getting there, but we appreciate your support and every click there.
I have a feeling we're going to be at 99,000 and YouTube's going to say, we're upping it up to 150.
Yeah, I know, right?
200,000.
Plaque, right?
Exactly. So, Manny, can you shed some light on this new Taycan line and refreshed features?
Yeah, so the information about the lines, new line's been out already, but they had a media drive in Seville, Spain. To be honest with you, while it sounds glamorous and whatnot, the whole trip's like 36 hours and more time traveling. It's weird because I think they send the Europeans to San Diego and they send the Americans to Europe.
That's funny.
Yeah, but they had the whole line of cars. I got to drive the base model, the Turbo S, and the 4S Cross Turismo. I was glad I got to drive the base model from the hotel to the racetrack, which was about a 35-minute, maybe 40-minute drive, because we all like the base models here at the office. And the base models are rear drive only, so it uses all the same body, which is nice because you can get a base model for, I think it starts off at 99,000, and it's a great looking car. I mean, I passed an older Taycan this morning in dark blue, and I thought, that is a good looking car. I mean, it doesn't have the proportion issue with the Panamera. Some people love the Panamera or hate it. The Taycan seems to be universally liked. So they did a refresh. Anything with Porsche is never an evolution. It's just never a revolution. It's only an evolution. So to the average person, it looks like the same Taycan as before, but they did make some subtle changes to the bumper, to the headlights. But underneath is where they made the biggest changes, and that's with the battery. It's a much longer range now. At the time of we haven't gotten the U.S. EPA numbers yet. But from what European journalists did in San Diego, I think it was around 360 miles.
Oh, wow.
They did.
Decent.
So one of our drives that they had prearranged in Spain, we started off with 48% battery. We drove for 3 hours on the countryside nonstop, and we finished with about 18%. I'm not sure how many kilometers, so it's not very scientific. But at no time were we looking at each other saying, is there a charger around? It's just it wasn't consuming that much, and whenever we went down the hill, you could see it recharging again. It's just something that never entered our head was, do we have enough battery?
So no range anxiety.
No, not at all. And especially since we did not know where we were just following the route that was pre-programmed inside the navigation. Had we broken down or something, that would have been an adventure trying to figure out tell people where we were. In Spain, but they picked a beautiful, maybe 100 and 200 kilometer route. So the biggest difference is with the base model, you can't get the new Porsche
Active
ride suspension.
You can.
You cannot.
No.
You can get the air ride, but not the active ride. And active ride is the one you've seen the videos where the car looks like it's dancing up, jumping down, up, left and right. It's phenomenal suspension. But for a daily driver, driving it to the racetrack, I did not miss it. And it had plenty of power. If you want to drive a choice other than maybe an Audi or a Tesla, it's a lot of car for 100,000. If I had any complaints about it, is that there's not enough switches. Everything's electronic. So it's unless you get used to the car, you have to actually look down to see what you're hitting.
The menu and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Or you just hit when you touch the screen, it immediately responds. But I would much rather have switches
for some functions
on the 992. Yeah, the primary functions you're going to be using without taking your eyes off the road. The Turbo S compared to the Turbo GT spec wise, it's just a little bit. I mean, a hair, teeny tiny slower. The Turbo S is just a beast. It is. Next week I can talk about the Turbo GT drive we did, but I will tell you the Turbo S they consider the in the hierarchy. I think it's called the suitable daily driver or something along those lines.
I found it interesting that the Turbo S and the Turbo GT, the specs are almost exactly, they're the same car, except I believe active ride is standard on the Turbo GT and not, there's something different.
It's I believe the rear motor on the Turbo GT is different.
Yeah.
I think the Turbo GT has the 900 amp.
That might be the case, but their performance and all that, it's almost the same. It's not until you get the Visoc package where you actually see a big performance.
Yeah. Actually, I have to check this to make sure I didn't...
All right, so for those that are listening that are being triggered by the fact that we're saying turbo on a car that doesn't have turbos, you want to explain what turbo actually is now, Manny?
Yes, it does have a turbo. No. You don't understand what a turbo is if you ask that. It's just the name of the line. It's a trim line, and they've done this for a while. There is no turbo in the Taycan. It's an electric motor. But the Porsche turbo means top of the line. So I know people probably think that the GT3 RS is their top of the line, but they really don't look at it that way. They look at their turbo as the top of the line, and they have that new Turbo Night package where it's a different crest, and they want to differentiate the top of the line trim line from everything else. So that's all it is. It's just a name. They've been doing it for a while. They're going to continue to do it. I'm sure we're going to see a turbo version of the Macan EV the same way.
We saw it at where were we? In Austin.
And conversely, every Macan is turbocharged, but they don't call every Macan turbo.
Right.
And that's because they save the turbo for the top of the line. Same thing with 992s. Non-GT models are still turbocharged, but they don't call it turbo except for the top of the line 911, which they call the turbo.
How did you did you get to take any of them on track?
I did. I can talk about that next week.
Okay.
The embargo. I took the Turbo GT on the track. They let us drive the other Taycan model line. There was about 12 journalists there from different magazines and whatnot. So the 4S was like the last one available when we came out of the building. So I got to share it with a journalist from Motor Week. The two of us went. What I thought was cool, I think Robert has some pictures. Obviously, this is a racetrack in Seville called Circuito Monteblanco, and that circuit did not have charging, so Porsche has to bring their own charging, and they have a tractor trailer.
Oh yeah,
that looked like it had a diesel generator and had Porsche turbo charging on the side of it, and that's where they would take the cars to get quick charges on them. But it must have been really quick because they turned around and brought them back quite fast. And when they get the cars ready for the track, I noticed that they were warming up the batteries, so they would drive it around, get the batteries to protect before they brought the cars on the grid for people to drive. But yeah, I wouldn't say they were hiding it, but they had it stuffed in the corner with the gas station,
right,
where they were doing the charging. To me, I love electric cars. I'm not an electric car prophet or someone who goes convincing the world that
it's going to save the planet.
If you look at it as a different form of power, there's a lot to be said. And I could easily see myself daily driving an electric car when it becomes, when financially it makes sense. I look at it as like an iPhone. And right now, we're an iPhone 2 maybe going to 3. And when the iPhones first came out, I didn't get my first one until iPhone 3 because I waited to see if this was going to become something everyone did. And then after that, every iPhone that came out, you remember, it was a big difference to iPhone 3, iPhone 4. Now, I can't tell you the difference between my 11 and the 15 other than the camera. But the batteries now last much longer. Yep. Before then, you heard the batteries were 50% more. You just jumped on it because you knew you were constantly looking for places to charge your phone battery. So I think you're going to see that same type of evolution with electric cars.
Cool. All right, Damon, you want to talk about your upcoming video?
Yeah, so got to drive. I've talked about this a few times now, but it's finally should be published by the time you listen or watch this podcast. But it was Aston Martin versus GT3. So 2014 Aston Martin V8 Vantage versus a 2007 GT3. The first Aston Martin V8 Vantage was, I say in the video, 07, but it was an 06 car, so I'll have to make a little edit there. But 06 to 2014, and that's right around the time when the GT3 came out. I remember Top Gear comparing them, although they were, I think, the GT3 RS versus the V8 Vantage N24, super hopped up version. But my uncle had both cars, and it was Thanksgiving, and we decided to have a bit of fun with his cars and some cameras. What I'll say is I was much more impressed with the V8 Vantage than I thought I would be going into the drive. But you'll have to watch the video to see what I say about both of those cars.
I think my prediction is the Vantage is like the proper tuxedo, and the GT3 is like a tracksuit.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. They're even more different to drive than you would think they are. Completely different. And I thought going into this that maybe someone with a V8 Vantage would cross shop a GT3, and after driving them,
two different people.
It's too different. It's a V8 Vantage is more like a Carrera S or a Carrera GTS.
So Lawrence Stroll owns Aston Martin now. It'll be interesting to see Aston Martin's path because Lawrence Stroll, it strikes me as the kind of man who doesn't like to lose or he wants to be successful at everything he does. So just following Formula One in Aston Martin, he has dumped a lot of money into the new factory, the new building for Formula One. He's trying to hire Adrian Newey away from Red Bulls, giving him like this incredible salary offer. So I think I would imagine we're probably going to see the same thing with their cars, maybe a resurgence, something like that. I'm sure, he wants to be also known as top level sports car. That'll be interesting to follow. It's a good looking car. I did not realize that Henrik Fisker was the designer.
Yeah, of the V8 Vantage.
I watched his video.
I
was watching it.
Yeah.
But then he left.
Has designed a lot of amazing cars.
Yes, he has.
He just hasn't had a good run on the business side of being
with
a
his
car
own companies at least. Yeah.
So.
But it's a sharp looking car.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into. There's a couple news items. The first actually goes back to we're talking about the Taycan and maybe battery modules.
Yes, but before that, I just looked it up. The Turbo S Taycan only uses uses the two 600 amp motors front and rear. The Turbo GT uses the 900 because they have a whole different inverter that they developed. So, anyways, that's to clarify that. Yeah, so there's a recall out. I'm sure if you're a Taycan owner, you've gotten notice. I think it affects 606 and 749 vehicles that the batteries may short circuit and catch fire.
That's not good.
So this is an old problem that we heard about 2, 3, 4 years ago now.
Yeah, but I think the dealers and manufacturers on it, and they're saying to just charge your car up to 80%.
Yeah.
No. All right, the next one has to do with Porsche Motorsports.
Yeah, so they announced a new endurance challenge. Usually which USAC is the United States Auto Club is sanctioning it. It's a 4-race series. It gives a home for obviously the 992 Cup car, but as well as the 991 Cup car and the GT4 Club Sport. And it's going to finish with a 6-hour race, which requires three drivers. And I think with the Endurance Cup, only one per driver can drive it, but they have 3 1-hour rounds. So it's not like a 3-hour race in a row. It's like 3 1-hour races that make up one race. So I guess it's something new with 4 races that they're just trying out, and once again giving people who own these cars a chance to run them. Of course, PCA allows them to run all the time. We have classes for all these cars, no matter how old your Cup car is, all the way down to the 964 or Firehawk Cup cars, we have classes for them to run in.
Yep. All right, let's get into PCA events. April 27th is Carlisle, the Porsche only swap meet. Hopefully add to my collection if I can get up there.
You want to sell anything?
No. No. Why would I do that? By the time you listen to this, Porsche Parade Phase 2 has opened, and this is where you'll be choosing your details of your experience at Parade, from your meals to the tours, autocross, all the competitive.
Do you know how many people are registered so far for Phase 1? Oh, Robert told us 919.
Wow, that's a good number.
Yeah, it's going to be...
That's roughly probably almost 1,800 people, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Between 2.5 hotels.
It's gonna be a pretty big one. Let's see. We also have an update. I think we're about 820 some passengers for Treffin at Sea. So if you are interested in going to Alaska with us, you can go ahead and do that. We added on. I know we're trying to do some special things on the day before we go on board, which may include visiting Griots, maybe even visiting Nathan Murr's facility, and also maybe going to the LeMay Museum. We're still working all the details out with the local region.
At any point, do they release who's going to the cruise?
You mean like the...
Well, I've had several people ask me who is coming from my region.
Oh.
So they're on the fence of whether or not they want to go.
Know. I don't know for privacy reasons if they can release passenger information like that. No, I don't know. No. All right, let's see here. PCA Sim Racing. Make sure if you're looking to race, there's a rig set up now that you can take advantage if you want sort of a plug and play system. I think it runs about $4,000. Robert, do you see it on there? 4,500. And the Sim Racing Chair worked with this company to come up with a system that is more than your just basic steering wheel and a table, but it's something that you could get into, plug and play, and last you a good while before you really need to upgrade into something else. So
money back if you don't win?
I don't think that's the case. Let's see. Also want to make sure for those of you that are interested in PCA Insider merch, we have the Insider Tee, the mug, and the water bottle. And if you're just looking for decals, just send us a note at podcast@pca.org, and we'll be more than happy to send out a couple of decals for you to show your support of the show. Anything else before we sign off, gentlemen?
When are you planning to take your car apart?
So today we will be plugging in the Durametric to check the cam deviations.
Your car's not even here.
Well, it was raining like cats and dogs, so... I'm gonna go home and get it, or I'm gonna bring the tester home, and then we've got to make a laundry list of things I need to buy.
Yep.
And then hopefully
I think next week is when we start.
Next week we'll start taking things apart.
Yep.
When are we taking the 964 up to GT Performance?
I think that probably next week sometime.
Next week, that'll be good because I'll need that room to lay out all my parts.
Yeah, it'll be gone.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, grab that VIN, head over to PCA.org, and get set up as a PCA member. If you're still looking for your Porsche, we have the test drive program. Again, PCA.org. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos and videos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. Again, you can always email us at podcast@pca.org. Stay in touch with all things PCA. Subscribe to our newsletters. Again, head to pca.org, sign up for free. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.